So this is a mandolin, and it is one of the essential pieces of equipment you're going to need for your raw food kitchen. It'll come in really handy for making your sauerkraut and shredding vegetables really quickly and easily. So this is the basic sauerkraut recipe which I'm about to show you how to make. And what I've got here is not quite a whole head of organic cabbage. And I'm going to mix it up with a bit of red cabbage and the green cabbage here as well. I've got some sterilised mason jars which we'll put the sauerkraut into. And I'm also going to add a couple of interesting ingredients here. I'm going to add 2 cloves of garlic and a green apple which I'll chop up. And we've got some juniper berries here which adds a really nice flavour to it. And here is some arame seaweed. Again, really, really good for you, high in iodine, lots of trace minerals. And all of this is just going to be amplified when it's put into the sauerkraut mix. And here we've got the Himalayan crystal salt, and this is actually what kickstarts the fermentation process. Luckily for us, the bad guys, the bad bacteria, can't tolerate too much salt, but the good guys are quite fine with it. So what will happen is this will eradicate all the bad bacteria and will also then allow the good bacteria in the vegetables to do its job and create the lactic acid, which gives the fermented foods that beautiful tangy flavour. Okay, so with the cabbage, what we're going to do is just peel off the outer layers. We're going to set these aside. These are going to come in very handy at the end, which I'll show you what we're going to do with then. Just a couple of red ones, maybe a green one. Alright, so now that we've done that, we want to shred these with the mandolin, one of these babies here, essential for your raw food kitchen. Just breaking it down into quarters makes the cabbage a little bit easier to work with. And then we just simply start shredding. Obviously, you want to use the safety cover the closer you get to the blades, which I'll probably do very soon. Alrighty, so now that we've grated everything, we're going to add in our 2 teaspoons of Himalayan crystal salt. And what we want to do here is really just start to massage that into the vegetables. This will actually help break down the cell wall of the cabbage and really start to release all that moisture. Now you can also just let it sit for a little bit. If you let it sit for a couple of hours, it'll start to do this on its own and start releasing the moisture. But this just helps to speed the process up. This is where you want to get your boyfriend or husband involved. Or someone who's a really good massage therapist would come in handy as well. So you can see how it's starting to release all that moisture. It's turning a beautiful purple colour, and it's really started to shrink down in size. And the fact that I used a really fine grater setting on the mandolin also helps as well. That actually speeds the process up too. So you just want to make sure when you grab a handful and you squeeze it, you can get moisture out. That's a really good sign. Then this is where you can add the rest of your ingredients in, and then we're going to add this into the mason jar. Okay, so what we're going to do now is just add in our garlic, our juniper berries, and the arame seaweed. And just give that a little stir through. Alright, so now that's nicely mixed through, we're ready to pop this into the mason jars. So what I've got here is actually what is called a picklet jar. Now this is kind of a special jar for fermenting foods because it has a little seal or capsule on the top that you just fill up with water, and basically what this does is keeps the whole process completely anaerobic, so you're always guaranteed of a great result with your ferments. This one here is just a plain mason jar, so you can use this as well. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and I'm going to show you how we use both of them today. Now what we do is just simply scoop this up, place it in the bottom of the jar. Now if you have a rolling pin or a tamper from your blender, this will come in really handy now, because what we want to do is we want to start pushing down all the vegetable and all the cabbage so that all that brine starts to come to the surface. And also by pushing down on the vegetable, you're creating an anaerobic environment in there as well, which is great for what the good bacteria love to do. So with my tamper, I'm just going to push this down. I don't know if you can see there, but you can see how all the moisture is starting to come up already. Okay, so once that's nice and firm in there, I just repeat that process, adding another bunch of cabbage in there and pushing down with the tamper. So you can see how that nearly a whole head of cabbage actually doesn't go that far once you've chopped everything down, and you start to get this brine happening. Now, when you get to the top, you want to leave about an inch. So I always aim just to fill it to the shoulder of the jar. Okay, so now that we've got this filled to pretty much the top, you can see how by pushing down with the tamper and creating that really packed environment there, that it's actually pushed the brine to the surface, and most of the cabbage is sitting under about an inch of brine, which is what we want. And also remember how we save some of the cabbage leaves, the outer leaves. This is also going to help push that brine push the cabbage underneath the brine. So you can do this either two ways. You can actually get a piece of cabbage and roll it up like so, and actually create little rolls that you can then push down with your fingers. Or the other thing that we can do is just grab a whole leaf and then simply place it over the top of the jar and push it down so that it creates a nice seal for the top. So the brine sits at the top and the cabbage mix sits underneath the brine. And just using your fingers, just push down. Beautiful. And now if you can look from the sides, you can see how that brine is keeping everything submerged, and that's what you want. So what we're going to do now is actually fill the airlock up with some water. And there's a little line there that you just fill the water up to. And pop that in there like so. Push that through and pop that lid on. Now that's ready to start fermenting. So as you can see, I didn't quite have enough cabbage to take it right up to the shoulder line of the mason jar, but that's okay, because once we add that cabbage leaf in at the top, and as long as this is submerged under the brine, that's totally fine. The fermentation process should work perfectly. So I'm just going to grab a leaf. Actually, this one might work quite nicely. I'm just going to push that down. So I've just grabbed a couple of cabbage leaves and I'm pushing down to so that everything stays underneath that brine as much as possible. So they've got a nice anaerobic environment in there so that all the good bacteria can do its thing. So what we do now is we just simply close the lid. Now with these two, what I'm going to do is I always put them in a bit of a container. I cover them up with a tea towel because they like to do their thing in the dark. And I always put this in the laundry or somewhere where it's not in the way, because once the fermentation process kicks in, it does tend to smell a little bit. It smells a bit like old man socks, which is, I don't know, could be nice for some people, but not that great for me. So yeah, put this away somewhere where it's not going to be in the main thoroughfare of the household and stink the whole house out. And this will take from 3 to 7 days, depending on the temperature. In the summer, it's going to happen a lot quicker. In the winter, a little bit slower. With fermentation, this could actually be fermented a lot longer. It all depends on the taste. Now, if you really like something quite sour and really tangy, you ferment for longer. If you want to slow down that fermentation process, then that's when you put these in the fridge because you're quite happy with where the flavour is at. If you want to kickstart the fermentation process again, then you can pull them out of the fridge, leave them on the bench, and they'll start to do their thing again and start to develop that taste even further. So this is the kind of fun thing about fermentation, you can really start to experiment, get to know the flavours that you like and how far you want to take your fermentation process. So we're going to come back to these once they're ready to eat so you can see what they look like.